Potential Experts is brought to you by Life Alert. If you're like Joel Embiid and you've fallen and you can't get up, contact Life Alert to keep your family members and loved ones in the loop with your safety at all times. All kidding aside, Potential Experts is brought to you by Vermonti's. Craving something cheesy, crispy, and unforgettably delicious? Say hello to Vermonti's Pizza, where every slice is a love letter to the Green Mountain State. From classic pepperoni to our legendary mac and cheese pizza, we're serving up bold flavors you won't find anywhere else. Order online and get 20% off your first order with promo code Vermonti20. That's VERMONTY20. Hit us up on Instagram at Vermonti's_Vermont Eats to see what's hot and fresh right now. Vermonti's Pizza. Homegrown, handmade, and hella good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Potential Experts. Today is Tuesday, May 12th. Evan's not with us today. He bailed. Shocker. Kind of becoming a habit around here. All good. Addition by subtraction. We have more important things to get to. Ladies and gentlemen, how sweep it is. Benjamin.
Why do you think Evan bailed today? Is there a reason in
I
particular?
think he was ducking smoke. I think he was scared for our milk chug off, and as a result, he's absent. I have students, we all do, I'm sure, that say, "Oh, we're having a test today. I'm not coming to school." Like they're not going to have to make it up another day. They don't think past that one day. I think that's what Evan did today, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's fair. There's some NBA players who are like, "Ooh, I got to go to the Garden tonight for Game 2 and play Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns, not even knowing Big Mitchie is sick, and maybe they'll sit out a game out of fear." So it's a similar mindset for our boy Evan. I will miss him. He's got such nice curly hair.
He does.
I want to run my fingers through it.
Okay. I didn't know we were going that direction.
No, and like in a platonic man.
I didn't imply anything else. I was just surprised to hear you say that.
I think we're getting unhinged Ben tonight. I think that's the direction this show is heading. It's early. Who knows? The things
You
can
want
change.
you want to know why you're getting unhinged, Ben? Because there's no stress on him right now. There's not gonna be stress until Sunday maybe Saturday if we know our opponent. But I was gonna say Sunday at the earliest because the New York Knicks, they originally had a game on the schedule tonight. Whenever the NBA schedule's released for the playoffs, it always comes up Game 5, Game 6, Game 7. It always has that parentheses and it says if necessary. And I'd say like 95% of series that Game 5 is necessary. Then you probably get to about 70% of series that Game 6 is necessary, and so on. It is not necessary for the New York Knicks. They beat the crap out of the Philadelphia 76ers. 4 games. The only one that was competitive was the one Joel Embiid didn't play in. It was Game 2 at the Garden. Mitchell Robinson was sick. Maxey came out firing. Paul George came out firing. And the Knicks, ultimately, I think in Game 2, they took the Sixers a little lightly, knowing Embiid wasn't going to play. Embiid wasn't there, so he couldn't be picked on defense. We didn't have that traffic cone being able to exploit him. Every other game was belt to behind. It was beautiful. Ben, I'll give it to you. I loved every second of it.
Thank you for giving it to me,
problem.
and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Anything.
No, I mean, it was a beautiful series. Like you said, I'm pretty stress-free right now. All the youth are like, "Mr. McPherson, you're in a good mood today." It's like, yeah, man. And I put the picture up on the board. Got a little sweeping action going on. Put my Knicks logo on the top, pictures on the bottom. Got a couple of Philly fans down here in Guatemala. I wasn't really sure why. I was like, why do you like the Sixers? I like Tyrese Maxey, which is a fair take. I don't hear anyone saying I like Joel Embiid. But speaking of Maxey, like I thought he was really going to be a problem for us this series. The Knicks have historically struggled against those, kind of like jitterbug, quick twitch guards, bringing the ball down and just kind of knifing through their defense. But a lot of credit to Mike Brown and a lot of credit to Mikal Bridges. Just the way the Knicks played on both sides of the ball that series was beautiful. Their defensive schemes were great, but it really, you can have a great scheme. You need the talent to implement it and to actually put it into practice in an effective manner. And Mikal Bridges did that to a T. As great as he was on offense that series, breaking out of that slump he seems to have been going through kind of his entire Knicks career and getting back to the Mikal Bridges that you traded so much draft capital for. His defense was what stood out to me because Maxey is a terrifying player to go up against. He was getting talked about after that Boston series as a top 5 guard in the NBA. He's going to make All-NBA this year. He had a great season, and Mikal Bridges just shut him down. And then the rest of the team defensively stepped up as well, especially not having your best defender for half the series in OG Anunoby. Towns was great on defense. Two-way Towns has been a beauty to watch. He's playing like the best passing big man in the league. He's without a doubt the best passing big man left in the league this year with Jokic out. And his defensive effort has been great. And, he's still the guy who's going to be picked on. But when Philly ran those screen and rolls, they would blitz Maxey with Bridges and whoever was getting screened. And then Brunson or Shaman or whoever would come in and they tag the roller. And Brunson just like buying into the defensive system and coming and tagging that roller, preventing that, kind of free like 4-on-3 action getting started. And then just watching the defensive rotations, which were on a string, zipping around, getting to the next pass. And on the rare occasions where those defensive rotations weren't at 100%, you're playing the Sixers, and that's why you can blitz, because if it's Kelly Oubre or Dominic Barlow or Quentin Grimes or Paul George after the first quarter,
VJ
you are
Edgecombe, too.
not scared of that.
VJ
VJ Edgecombe had a rough shooting series. You're not scared of that shot. So the Knicks, that blitz strategy was insane. The offensive strategy, going back to this cat hub action, he had a little trouble against Embiid with the game one, figured it out as the series went around. A lot of handoff action. They had this one play. I watched a video where Brunson would get the ball at the top off of a DHO. He'd go into a screen and roll, and then whatever side of the floor he wants to go to, which is not always the side of the screen because he likes to reject the screen. You run the man through on a cut because everyone on that Knicks team is shooting the lights out of the ball right now. They all create so much gravity. Of course, Towns is creating gravity as your center, and it opens up the whole side of the floor for Brunson to cook. And he was getting buckets. And he was making the right plays when he wasn't getting buckets. Towns, the same thing. And you had the shooters on lock. I mean, Deuce McBride in game 4, insane. Shamet all series. Bridges is shooting better. Hart is getting his 3 back a little bit now. It's been a beauty to see. The Knicks are playing with the best team in the NBA. You can make the case for the Thunder, but if you are looking purely at numbers and combining that with the eye test, their point differential through this point in the playoffs, winning 6 games straight now against tougher competition than OKC has had to play in their winning streak at the moment. It's been fantastic. It'll be slightly more challenging next series, but we saw it today. I just got the text from you. Obviously, you're never rooting for injuries or anything like that. But as Cleveland and Detroit go further and further into the series, especially, well, both of them already coming off of game 7s, it looks like it may be heading that way again. You have guys popping up on the injury report. Guys are getting banged up. It's the playoffs. Guys are going to get banged up this time of year. And the fact that the Knicks could take care of this in 4, not play with their food, just go for the kill, even without Anunoby. They'll be rested. They'll be ready to go. Ian Begley, a Knicks beat reporter, reported today that vibes are great with Anunoby, barring some insane setback. He'll be good to go game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The guys are rested up. It puts them in a very advantageous situation where either Detroit or Cleveland will most likely be coming into this Eastern Conference Finals limping out of 2 7-game series or a 7-game series and a 6-game series. It's a great position in the East.
Yeah, a lot to unpack what you said, so I'll just kind of talk about some of the major points. What stood out to me is, and I'll talk about Jalen Brunson's defensive buy-in because you already mentioned that. It reminds me similar to the way that like the Warriors had to get Steph Curry to buy in defensively because you obviously know what Stephen Curry brings you offensively, and you know what I know Jalen Brunson isn't Steph Curry obviously, but you know what he brings you offensively on the same side of that coin. You need to have some kind of defensive buy-in from one of them. They can't get picked on, and the Warriors obviously won 4 titles, and you get that with well, I guess 2 of them were the super team, but still, the other 2 were defensive buy-in with Steph, and you're seeing those same tendencies, those same habits from Jalen Brunson. He knows where to go. He's obviously not a skilled defender. He's no Drew Holiday by any means, any stretch of the imagination, but he's buying into the level that he needs to buy into. The other thing, credit to Mikal Bridges. And you mentioned this, Ben, in a text the other day, how important was that game 6 in Atlanta? The Knicks won by 50. They didn't need Mikal Bridges to play well. They could have won that game with you or I on the floor out there. That's just the way that went. A little Danilo Gallinari, as you would say. But all kidding aside, that was so huge for his confidence. He was lights out this series. I was so impressed with him. It's one of those rare series where usually when you go through a series, even if you win in 4 or 5 or especially 6, you can pinpoint and be like, so-and-so had a great series. So-and-so didn't really have a good series. There was not a single Knick that I can look at and be like, they struggled this series. Deuce had a rough shooting game 3, obviously lights out, 7 of 9 from 3 in game 4, ridiculous. I thought Alvarado was good. I thought Shamet coming into his own was exceptional. All the starters were great. I think the only person that you could say didn't have a great series, maybe Jordan Clarkson, maybe. Well, I mean, it didn't stick out like a sore thumb to me. I'll tell you that.
No, and even when his shot's not falling down, he's just changed his game so much. You can clearly tell he's been on a team with Josh Hart for a year because the way he goes after these loose balls and these rebounds now. Jordan Clarkson, hustle 50-50 ball guy was not on my bingo card for this year, and that is kind of the player he's turned into, which has been cool. And then the other guy you didn't mention, goes without saying. Mitchell Robinson, man, that guy would be starting on the majority of teams in the NBA. Having him coming off the bench is such a luxury. And when Cat gets into foul trouble, which is going to happen when you're playing against Embiid, having Mitchell Robinson in there, who is obviously upgrade on defense, but still brings you a lot on offense with the offensive rebounding, of course. But even him as a screen setter for Brunson's so good out of the pick and roll. And even though Brunson and Cat's, screen and roll or screen and pop action has greatly improved in these playoffs and kind of that little end of the regular season, Mitch is still like even an upgrade there as a screener, and the vertical spacing, all that stuff. So they're a deep team. They can beat you in different ways. They can run double big. You can even play OG at the 5, which we haven't had to see too much in these playoffs, but I'm sure it'll come at some point. You have so many shooters. You got Bridges as like a secondary creator now, kind of what you brought him in to be. Oh, I'm just riding high on it, man. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
It just impacts every area of your life. When the sun's a little nicer, food tastes a little better. You don't mind getting up for work. I'm just like, here we go, man.
No,
What a time to be alive.
it's a great feeling. And Ben, I mentioned this to you on text chain the other day. It was as much fun as last year's series against the Celtics was, winning Game 6 the way we did by 38 points. I remember the next day, that was a Friday night. The next day, I went up to Burlington because that was Emma's graduation weekend, and I
Yeah.
wore my Jalen Brunson jersey all throughout Church Street, and it was truly a magical day. Seriously, it was one of the more fun days, probably a top 10 day I had in my life. Just because the vibes were so high, because everyone in Burlington was happy. It was graduation weekend, families are up, everyone's having a great time. Knicks had just clinched the series against the Celtics. It was unbelievable. It was truly, like I said, probably a top 10 day I've had in my life, and I'm not being hyperbolic. But I look back at that now, and the reality of the situation was, beating the Celtics last year, similar to what we said about Philly, it was our Super Bowl. Well, let's just call it what it was. I know we blew it to Indiana, but it was our Super Bowl, and there was letdown. For me, this year, I'm thrilled. We just kicked the crap out of Philly. This is not my Super Bowl at all. There's more work to be done. And even Deuce actually said something similar to this. They asked, like, how does it feel going to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals? He said something along the lines of, this is expected. This is not our goal. This is expected. And that's kind of actually how I feel now. Honestly, I don't play for the team. But that is how I feel as a Knicks fan. I didn't overly celebrate the Philly win. I felt like I was pumped. We looked fantastic. And I felt like, job done. Who's next? That's how I felt personally.
A follow-up question, and Brandon, this is actually something you can hop in as well on here. Speaking of Nick's post-game comments, after the game, Josh Hart was asked a question. And I don't remember the exact wording of the question, but his answer was, I used to think Philly was a sports town. Now I'm not sure it is, because those Philadelphia fans got absolutely disgraced by the New York fans on Friday and Sunday's game, especially on Sunday. That was a Knicks home game. 75% of the fans that were Knicks fans. Brandon, as this dives into the world of hockey and football and baseball as well, do you think Philly is a sports town? Because I'm starting to have my doubts here. It's not on that New York Boston level, I wouldn't say.
I don't think that Philly is a sports town, but
Put it on a quote
they
card. Put it on a
are.
quote card from Brandon. Philly's not a sports.
But they're passionate at the same time. Like, the Philly fans just need something to go crazy over, because that's what it seems like. We've talked about this, I think, previously on the show, and we compared Buffalo fans and Philly fans. Now, Buffalo is a sports town because when you look at Buffalo, the Sabres and Bills fans, when they get excited about their team, right? They just want to go out there, celebrate, smash some tables, and have a good time. They're the fun drunk uncle at the tailgate every single time. Philly fans just want something to be pissed off about and want to destroy their own city. Let's be
Isn't
real.
that what Vancouver,
That to me
isn't that what
says
Vancouver does too? They riot whether the Canucks win or lose.
they did do that one time. Yeah, that did happen. So with that, I say Philly's not a true sports town. If you want to, show the passion you have for your teams in your city, why don't you show it by, like, maybe having a little bit of respect for the city that you live in and, just cheering on the team that you watch, right? You wanna be passionate about it like Bills fans are? Go for it. I got no problem with that, but the fact you destroy your own city in the process and just, you
Process.
True. The biggest part of that for me is just how disrespectful Philly fans are to opposing fans as well. 'Cause there's a big, there is a certain level that I understand, you're gonna talk smack to the fans of the other team when they're coming to your stadium. But Philly fans, they take everything to another level, and I don't think it's cool.
I'm with you. Philly, for those that might not be aware, I'm sure Brandon will touch on this a little bit in hockey, so I'm certainly not gonna steal any thunder, not that I could, not that I have the base of knowledge to do so anyway. Philly got double swept this weekend. The Flyers got swept out of the playoffs by the Hurricanes, who have now won their first 8 playoff games. Again, I'm not gonna speak too much more on that, but just the fact that Philly got double swept this weekend is embarrassing. What I'll say, kind of just sticking on the point of his Philly a sports town, Carolina Hurricane fans did not take over Xfinity Mobile Arena the prior night for game 4 when the Flyers got swept out of it. I learned, and I wouldn't have expected this. I knew Philly fans, I knew their number one was the Eagles. I knew they were overly passionate about them, but I didn't know that the Sixers were the redheaded stepchild of the bunch until this week. And that includes, I mean, Ben, we saw, videos of when we took over their arena back in 24, those playoff games after game 4, expletive Embiid being chanted in the concourse after game 4, the Knicks go up 3-1. Like, I saw that and I just thought that, I thought it was just Knicks fans representing well, which of course they do. But to see what unfolded this weekend in Philly, wow, that's embarrassing for the Sixers, and you're not gonna catch me having much sympathy for the Sixers players on any level, but, like,
Tyrese
I
Maxey,
was just
though.
about to say, but Maxey, we as Knick fans, as bad of a series as he's had, we've respected the heck out of Maxey since 2024 when he just gave us buckets and did so ethically, and he just seems like a good dude, so we respect him as Knicks fans. He even said he was asked, and you could tell he was, like, visibly sad. He's like, "Yeah, like, it sucks. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I wish they didn't take over our arena. What do you want me to say?" So I actually I felt if there's anyone I'll give sympathy to, it's a little bit of Tyrese Maxey. Kelly Oubre, don't care. Embiid, don't care. VJ Edgecombe, don't care. But Maxey,
I like VJ. I think he was talking a little bit for a guy who like didn't hit rim on half his threes that series, but he's a competitor. He seems like a good kid.
really good player.
And as bad as this is, as bad as this is for Philly right now, you got about 2 more years of suck because you got 2 more years on this Paul George contract, and B's got a 3-year extension kicking in this year. Insane. He'll be making $67 million 3 seasons from now for a guy who just maybe full Greg Oden at that point. But in 2 years, he will become an expiring contract. Maybe you can move off of that for a team that's trying to clear a little space or something. And then Maxi will only be 27 at the time. Edgecombe's going to be like, what, 21, 22? Like, he'll still be a child. So, I mean, that future is bright in Philly. It's just you got a little more time in the tunnel before you get to the light. But there's some silver linings for Philly fans. Maxi and Edgecombe could easily be explosive backcourt, if not just the straight up best backcourt in the NBA in a few years. Those are two great guys who seem to play off of each other really well. So I'll give them that.
Forgot who said this. It's not going to happen. It's one of those ideas that's probably too nuts, but it actually makes sense. This guy, it might have been Nick Wright, who doesn't have a whole lot of good takes, but if this is Nick Wright, I kind of respected this one. It was the Sixers should propose the following to Embiid: medically retire, and we will give you a stake in the franchise, so you can be an owner and thus recoup the money that you would otherwise have made. But it's obviously not going to count against our caps. You could still be a part of the organization, but we don't have to pay you 65 to 60, it's 67 million dollars out of our cap. Like, it's not going to happen. There you go, man. It's absolutely not going to happen, but it wasn't the craziest idea, to be quite honest. But we can talk about.
It's a lot logically sound.
Yeah, it's logically sound. Ben, we can talk about Knicks, Sixers all day. We are, a national sports podcast, so we have other stuff to get to. Last thing I'm going to ask you, because you're really good at looking at this analytical aspect. Like, I think analytically speaking, for definitely from a basketball perspective, you're the strongest on the pod here. Who would you want?
Thanks.
Yeah.
I am the strongest on the pod.
Yeah, notoriously the deepest bench, or the deepest bag and the strongest
Yeah.
bench, or famously. Sorry, not notoriously, famously. We'll get to your birds later, but as a Knicks fan, and I'm actually curious too. Matchup wise, who would you rather see in the Eastern Conference Final? Because I think the gut answer, and it might still be your answer, is the Cavs, because the Pistons beat the crap, and we can't overrate regular season ball, but they did beat the crap out of us 3 times, and we won 2 out of 3 to the Cavaliers. So I think the obvious answer immediately might be the Cavs, but I'm interested to hear your take. If it is the Cavs, why? And if it's a shocker and it's the Pistons, tell me why there too.
You're not getting a shocker out of me here. I do think it is Cleveland, and that's not really taking into account the regular season match with Detroit. To be clear, I think we win either of those series, and I don't think it would be super duper close. I think it would be closer than this Philly series, but it may be more like the Atlanta experience. Cleveland's just got a lot of roster flaws, and I talked about them last week, but I mean, our wings would just dominate that series. And when you think about your best players on the Knicks in Brunson and Towns, they're going to have a much easier time against Cleveland. Detroit has a plethora of defenders to throw at Brunson, namely Asar Thompson, who him and his brother are 2 of the 3 best defenders on the perimeter in the NBA, along with OG Anunoby. You don't have to deal with that in the Cleveland matchup. Brunson was just going to have so many places to attack in that Cleveland series. The Cleveland bigs do not scare me. I think Mobley's a good player, but he doesn't have that same oomph that like Isaiah Stewart has. I know Duren hasn't had a good playoffs by any stretch. He had 8-2 last game, but he is a physical guy. Mitchell Robinson has put belt to those bigs before. OG and Bridges would be able to dominate that series. Cleveland's big advantage is Donovan Mitchell and Harden as your 2 lead guards, both being such a threat and kind of having that pick your poison type deal there and always having one of them on the court. We have Bridges, OG, and honestly, the way he's been playing defense these playoffs, Josh Hart can just I think you feel pretty comfortable putting those guys in any of them, not to mention Harden struggles in the playoffs. And last but not least, if Cleveland somehow wins the series, they'll need to get their first road win of the playoffs to do so. And they really struggle to do that. I feel pretty confident going against Cleveland, especially having home court advantage in that series. Detroit, that would be a good matchup. Cade is great. He's definitely on that same level as Brunson and Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, guys like that. But again, even in that series, you have a ton of guys to throw at him. OG Anunoby, you can put this little Tobias Harris fun story to an end. And then their bigs have just not been up to par. So I'm off Twitter. I'm off Instagram. Sometimes I hop on specific NBA team subreddits, though, to see how their fans are feeling about it, because that's, you can get into their fans' kind of mindset there and see things from their perspective. I've seen people trying to get Paul Reed minutes instead of Jalen
Dude,
Duren.
he's
Like,
been
he
good.
has been rough.
He's
And Duren's been awful.
Reed's been good.
This will be something, yeah. And this will be something for the summer. But Duren, he's up for a contract extension this summer.
Big time.
And you talk about that 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months ago we were saying like you're not putting him in a Giannis deal. And what you've seen out of him in these playoffs, it's like, what do you want to give this guy a max contract and lock yourself into him as your, one of your highest paid players going forward and limiting your roster construction? I don't know about that. I don't know if you want to do that. But honestly, I mean, there's the Knicks fan bias here, but you listen to these national media podcasts and TV shows and all these things that are not coming at it from a Knicks fan perspective. It does seem pretty clear that at the way the Knicks are playing right now, they are favorites to get out of the East. And I think it's just going to be easier for them to keep that offensive firepower rolling against Cleveland. And I think they're going to bring the defense no matter what. So Cleveland feels a little better for me out of the 2.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I try not to like I said, we can't overrate the regular season. I try not to, but I just I watched every game of Cleveland Detroit. I'm pumped to watch Game 5 tomorrow. Last thoughts on Knicks versus whether it be Cavs or Pistons. I feel like this is our year to break through, get to the finals. And part of me feels like the year, we went into the year thinking it was going to be Knicks, Cavs, and then everyone was going to be a step and a half below. Obviously, that's not the way it ended up shaking out. Neither of those 2 teams ended in the top 2. Seeding wise, it was Pistons 1, Celtics 2. I think it would be right. Not that I really care because the Knicks already clinched their spot there, but I think it would be right if Cleveland finds a way to get out of the series, and it is what everyone thought of originally when this year entered, albeit with a different version of the Cavaliers, one that includes James Harden as opposed to Darius Garland, one that includes Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder as opposed to DeAndre Hunter and Lonzo Ball. But still, nonetheless, those two pretty big name brands. Ben, go ahead, close us out before we already talked enough Cavs Pistons, so we can shift over to the West after this.
I was just gonna say, I know you've said you've watched the first 4 games. I ended up just kind of watching some of the highlights after last night because I was at my basketball yesterday. What do you think Detroit can do to get back on track here? Is it just a matter of getting back to home court, or is there something they can adjust, or is there something Cleveland can do to keep this momentum rolling, actually win a game on the road for once? What do you think is going to be the change, or maybe not even change, but just consistent factor that's going to determine how this series ends up shaking out going into a best of 3 scenario now?
Honestly, it's just, and we saw the same thing with Orlando, but Orlando's weaknesses were Detroit's weaknesses. They don't have enough shooting. And I watched game 4 last night, and contrary to game 1 and 2 of the series, where Duncan Robinson destroyed Cleveland, I looked up halfway through the third quarter and said, is Duncan Robinson hurt? Because I hadn't seen him make any kind of impact on the game. He finished the night with 4 points, only 1 3, and he had 2 free throw attempts. He actually, believe it or not, missed one of those 2 free throws, hence how you get to the 4 points. They are struggling to create legitimate opportunities. Duren is credit to Evan Mobley. I've been very critical of Evan Mobley. He stepped up last night and defended Jalen Duren beautifully. There was a few insane blocks right at the rim. He's not allowing Duren to bully him, even though Duren has probably 30 pounds on Mobley. He is not allowing him to push him down, back him down, and get him into those uncomfortable positions where he can just simply go and dunk over the top of him. It's not happening. Honestly, Cade's been shooting really, really well, but Cade's not an elite 3-point shooter. Asar Thompson, we know his inability to shoot the basketball at a high level from the outside, anywhere outside of the restricted area. Tobias Harris, I mean, if you're a Pistons fan, thank God for Tobias. But yesterday, he had 14 points in the first half, and the announcer actually said, Tobias Harris, 8 straight games with 20 or more points, and he's well on his way to another one. Well, nice job with the announcer, Jinx. Tobias Harris finished that game with 16 points. So, and that's when Cleveland ran away with it in the second half. Granted, Mitchell went nuclear, so you have to figure out how to slow him down. Donovan Mitchell had, I believe, 35 points in the second half alone. He was a disappearing act.
39.
39?
He missed a free throw to get to 40.
Wow, good catch on your part there. So a lot of things just went for Cleveland and against Detroit last night. We didn't even bring up the free throw discrepancy, which JB Bickerstaff pointed out in his post-game presser last night. Cleveland shot 34 free throws. Detroit shot 12. That's a little ridiculous. And that's coming from someone who's rooting for Cleveland in the series. That is a little ridiculous. I don't care, but whatever. So I guess I'm kind of just stating a lot of things. I didn't really pinpoint one thing. But yeah, if you're Detroit, you have to figure out a way to slow Donovan Mitchell. You got to hope that Harden turns back into the playoff pumpkin that he's been for a majority of his career. He doesn't have to be as bad as he was in game 2, but he walked him down in game 3 and got 3 clutch buckets in a row. And everyone's giving Harden his props, as they should be. But what I wish people were doing more of, in addition to giving Harden his props, is giving Cade a hard time, because those 3 possessions that Harden got buckets, on the other end of the floor, Cade had 3 turnovers. So he's the golden boy. You know, he's not even a rising star anymore. He's a flat-out superstar. Let's call it what it is. He's an unbelievable player, 100% a top 10 player in the NBA. But he hasn't taken care of the ball well enough so far in these past 2 games. So he's got to take better care of the ball. Tobias has to get back on track with his shooting. They got to get Duncan Robinson more involved. And Jalen Duren, he's got to win his matchups against Mobley and Allen more often than not. And that's a tall task. It's a really tall task. Ben, go ahead.
In defense of Jalen Duren, yesterday, Angel Reese did release a video stating that Jalen Duren was spending $500,000 a week on her when they were dating, and was kind of clowning on him for that. Angel Reese, big defensive factor in these playoffs. She's popping up a lot in the Jalen Duren storyline. Kudos to her. I know the WNBA has gotten rolling again here, so we'll lock in on that a little bit when we get closer to playoffs. Ben, you want to bounce over to the other sweep that got wrapped up last night?
Yeah.
Thunder Lakers. Any thoughts on the series itself?
Yeah. I mean, I watched a good amount of this series too. I just don't know that there's too much to say past. It was very, very clear that the Lakers were being led by a 41-year-old player who still has a good amount left in the tank, but ultimately cannot contend with one of the most efficiently constructed teams of our era in the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was obvious Luka was so missed in his ability to just create, stretch the floor. I mean, the Lakers got good series from guys like Rui Hachimura, not Jared Vanderbilt, I can tell you that. LeBron had a good series. DeAndre Ayton had one of the worst series you'll ever see in your entire life. So I don't know. Poor Ethan. Poor
Shocking.
Evan. Poor Evan. Poor Evan. You know, those poor kids up in Seattle. They're not going to be getting out of their house. You know, butts in seats for DeAndre Ayton. He was just abysmal. I think the biggest takeaway, honestly, and this is kind of a weird takeaway, aside from the refs, which Ben, I'll kind of let you talk about a little bit. I think you might be a little more knowledgeable on that kind of stuff than me. Was the continued emergence of AJ Mitchell, drafted by the Knicks, by the way. Sorry, AJ Mitchell, New York Knicks legend. Now that's
Once a Nick, always a Nick.
that's a tough one to see. You know, obviously never played a game for us. He was never even really officially a Knick, but we did technically have his draft rights for about 15 minutes. His in the series clincher last night. I'm pulling it up right now because I want to say 28, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, he finished at 20. He finished at 28. I watched the end of the
Yeah,
game.
he had 28 on 12,
It wasn't on
19,
too late for me.
1 of 4 shooting. In these NBA playoffs, he's averaged over just under 19 points per game, truly stepping up as that third option. As their third option, Jalen Williams continues to rehab from a grade 1 hamstring strain. It's just, I mean, you even got a guy like Jared McCain, who obviously would have probably won Rookie of the Year last year had he not gotten hurt when he was still with the 76ers. So it's not like this guy is totally out of the blue, but it's just another testament to this Oklahoma City Thunder that they can just roll body after body after body at you. And that's not even including a guy like an Alex Caruso or a guy that gets sparing minutes who's a sniper off the bench, and Isaiah Joe. They're the real deal. Like, no duh, they're the defending NBA champions, but they are a force to be reckoned with, and I'm not surprised by the sweep at all. What are your thoughts?
No, I'm definitely not shocked either. I know you mentioned the officiating as something for you to dive in on. It was really bad in that one game early on. I think it was game two. But I mean, to be quite clear, they get a perfectly officiated series. The Lakers are still getting swept. That might be something that starts bothering me a little more as we get into later rounds, especially in the conference finals, because I do want to talk about, because I don't think it's lopsided one way or another at all. But I do want to talk about the way the Spurs and the Wolves are being officiated with the amount of physicality both ways that's being allowed. But yeah, I mean, there's I feel like I haven't seen the Thunder play a playoff series yet. And maybe that's credit to the Thunder, but playing the Suns and then playing the Lakers without LeBron, I mean without Luca, like that side of the bracket has broken beautifully for them. It's going to be the old rest versus rust debate when they see the either the Spurs or the Wolves. Like those are two teams that are coming out of a real playoff series and are at that playoff intensity. Oklahoma City is going to have to switch that on the dot because they haven't really had to do it yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. That has been, without a doubt, the best series so far. That in the Spurs and Wolves last game, very entertaining. Obviously, the big kind of headliner was when Wembanyama getting tossed. I thought it was
Oh
fair.
yeah.
I honestly, I didn't think they were going to do it. The NBA has it's kind of a little of a bit of a nasty tendency to let the name brand value of a player impact the type of calls that player gets. I didn't think they'd want to have this big playoff nationally televised game, not have Victor Wembanyama play a part in, but they made the right call and they kicked him out. You never, defensively, I don't think you can ever notice a guy's value as much when they're on the court as opposed to the second they step off and you see what changes. Because the minute Wemby was out of that game and they bring in a good defensive center in Luke Cornett, not a bad defensive center at all, but just the fact that he's not Wemby, the Wolves get downhill, they attack the rim, Gobert's getting dunks, Randall's confidence just lights up and he starts playing his bully ball. Edwards, even though he can't dunk right now, is getting to the rim for layups and whatnot. And it changes the whole game. We've seen the Wolves beat the Spurs with a healthy Wemby. They're going to have to do it 2 more times in games that Wemby is playing unless he really does something dumb. But then, game 5 is starting pretty soon for us here at the time of recording, probably about 20 minutes till tip. it's going to be fascinating. Just the way those two teams play basketball. You have this young, feisty team versus a not so young yet still very feisty team. The Wolves are at their best in these kind of what the hell situations, and Wembanyama is a proven playoff riser. Dylan Harper is proving himself as a playoff riser. He has been fantastic this series. It's a little weird, the De'Aaron Fox situation. It's, you bring that guy in to be your number two option, and he just frankly hasn't been that. I think he's been the third best guard on the team these playoffs, behind Castle and Harper. So you wonder how maybe long term his future is in San Antonio, but Harper he's fun to watch. His finishes around the basket, his footwork, he's very Jalen Brunson esque in how he operates around the rim, has a lot of those same kind of just fundamental skills that guys like Shea and, as I said, Brunson have at the point guard position, which is kind of this new wave of like the Tim Duncan of point guards, like and Dylan Harper is also a Spur, obviously. So it's funny that, you kind of see this new brand of point guard coming to dominate the league where you know, it's not a Steph Curry or a Damian Lillard who's just pulling from anywhere, and it's not a Westbrook or a Derrick Rose who's just like attacking the rim with such athletic ferocity. But these guys they've taken that big man footwork and they've implemented it into that point guard role, and it's a fun brand of basketball to watch when those guys are using those moves to score, not to get fouled. So Harper's been great. Castle Two-Way has been great, but the Wolves, they've been here before. Like you see the veteran experience coming through. Chris Finch he tried his best at the end of that game to make something crazy happen. I don't know why a timeout wasn't called earlier. Ayo Dosunmu with his own little helmet catch or whatever you want to call it, but it's been a good series. I'm excited for Game 5. Ben, people will be listening to this after Game 5 happens, so why don't you make a prediction so you can sound really smart or really dumb?
He's gonna go on one tonight. I'm thinking 33-12 with 4 blocks, and the Spurs are gonna win by double digits and gonna prove once again why people think they are maybe not OKC's equal in the West, because I think until proven, nobody in the NBA is OKC's equal, but why they are the best team and put together the absolute best way to possibly slay that giant. So I'm gonna go Spurs Wolves 97, 15-point win. Maybe it's a little closer. Maybe it's a 9-point game entering the fourth, but the Spurs kind of put them away with some just better execution and some free throws at the end.
What's Randall's stat line tonight?
I'm gonna go with the stat line that I saw because, as I always say, I'm addicted to Twitter. A guy on Twitter said the following. Sorry, I'm watching Montreal Buffalo. A little controversial moment right now. Guy said, I think Julius Randle's gonna have a big night, and he said a stat line. And I agree. 15 of 17, or sorry, 5 of 17. Sorry, important distinction there. 5 of 17, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 turnovers. And I'll even hit you with a plus minus. We're gonna go with a minus 11. So that's
minus 11 for Randall
from
tonight.
Julius tonight. I feel bad
Yeah, it's fair.
being mean to him because he was the beginning of turning this Knicks iteration around, but he's confirmed playoff dropper.
Can I give you another? Well, I think we're good on playoffs, right? I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
We'll get a little more clarity on the conference finals by this time next week. We can dive into those matchups and recap the end of these series that are still going on.
We're gonna look for clarity.
I got one quick question for you before we go into draft lottery. Had a student today was asking me about prime Russell Westbrook, and this kid is a big NFL fan. So he was like, "Well, what is the NFL equivalent of Russell Westbrook?"
It's a great question. Weird answer here.
Brandon, you're still muted.
I would say I want to try and answer this one. I think I got a good answer for this one.
Go ahead, Dave.
MVP Cam Newton. Was it 2015?
Damn, I kind of like that answer.
I like it.
I really want to be able to crap on Brandon's answer. I would have done it even if it was close, but that's a really, really good answer.
I told the kid prime Marshawn Lynch.
My answer is going to be prime Julio Jones. Never reached the mountaintop. One of the most exciting players in the game, no doubt. Towards the end of his career, kind of bounced around, spent a season in Tennessee, spent a little time with Tampa Bay, spent a little time with Philadelphia after, the main stretch of his career, which of course was with Atlanta. Just a freak athlete, and should be discussed in the top, despite never winning at all, should be discussed in the top 10 receivers of all time, the same way that Russ, despite not winning at all, should be discussed as a top 10 point guard of all time. So I'm going to go with Julio Jones.
I like it. That's a good one. Another thing happened in the NBA this week, besides Russell Westbrook being comped to NFL players. Draft lottery went down on Sunday, a little appetizer before the playoff games. Washington gets the first pick, Utah second, Memphis third, and Chicago fourth. I've been hearing a lot, been reading a lot, watching some film. I mean, Ben, you watch some more college basketball than I do, but Caleb Wilson gonna kind of creep up here in this draft, maybe get ahead of Cam Boozer at least. You think this is gonna go
I
down?
thought he might, and he still very well could. Because it feels like every year there's a shocker in that range, whether it works out for good or for better or worse. Like I think we kind of expected it last year, but like Ace Bailey was definitely the projected number 3 prospect, but then there was some buzz about, oh, does he want to go and play in Philadelphia? It seemed like he wanted to slip later in the draft. So BJ Edgecombe ended up going 3, Knipple ended up going 4, and that left Bailey at 5. A few years back, the Bulls took Patrick Williams at 4. Even a few years prior to that, and it ended up being obviously the right pick, but the Orlando Magic, no, excuse me, Toronto Raptors took Scotty Barnes at 4 over Jalen Suggs. At the time, I thought Suggs was the clear pick there, and that shocked me. So there's always like a shock or two, like in that specific like 3 to 6 range. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Wilson jumps up over Boozer, who I think the thing about Boozer is great college player. I think his ceiling though is his dad, and his dad was a good player, but like if you're taking a guy at number 3, I think you want a little bit of a higher ceiling than a Carlos Boozer. But with that being said, he put on a great show at the combine today in the 3-point. Granted, there's no defense, but in the 3-point shooting drill, he went 19 of 25. And as a modern day stretch 4, you're going to have to be able to knock down an open shot on the outside. So that bodes well for his prospect. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Who has 3? Memphis?
Yeah, and they can go either way there. Your pieces. You got Zach Edey as your 5. And then you got Cedric Howard as a wing. And so you can kind of slot either of those guys in at your 4-man spot. They're probably moving off a jaw and kind of resetting this whole thing. I think in their position, like if I was them, I'd be going for the swing on Wilson. If, say, Indiana, which thank God Indiana lost their pick, but if Indiana was in that 3 spot and you're already a competitive team, maybe Boozer's the guy you go with because he just seems like a winning player. Kind of has that like Al Horford sort of mentality to him. Just kind of get your work done, do the right play, do the right thing. There's no way he's going to be a bad NBA player. So it's interesting. And then it gets real interesting in that 5 to kind of 8, 9 range because all those next guys after the top 4 are basically all point guards. Or I guess Burries is kind of a smaller shooting guard. And not all those teams need point guards. Like Brooklyn, they got screwed falling to 6. I don't know. Like, do you trade at it? Like, what do you do with that spot there? You just drafted 5 guards last year. Do you find a guy who do you go with like Keaton Vogler and go with a Vogler or like Yegor Demon backcourt? Like maybe that works, but that's a funky situation there. And even the same thing for the Clippers. I mean, they're very happy they got the pick, but they just traded for Garland. Like, are you going to take another guard there? That's why I think Vogler's going to go pretty high because he's got the most size out of those guys. And you can play him in 2-guard lineups like a Halliburton Nemhard type of thing. So that's gonna be an interesting range in the draft after seeing the order of the first 4. Because I don't even think Debance is a guarantee to go number 1. Peterson's upside is just insane. Like, if you want the next Anthony Edwards, you're going to draft Darren Peterson. That's the guy you go with. It's going to be an interesting draft night when it comes around. Utah's in a great position as a team now. You mentioned they got Bailey last year. They got Markkanen. They got Jaren Jackson, Walker Kessler, Keontae George sliding in the number 2 pick in this draft, whether it's Debance or Peterson there. I mean, they could be. I'm sure Ethan will pick him to make the playoffs next year. Or sorry, Evan will pick him to make the playoffs next year. There'll be maybe a little like Portland type of scenario.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. You could say the same thing about Washington, honestly. Depends on if Trae Young plays and if Anthony Davis actually stays there. But it was a fun lottery. OKC stayed down nice and low. Now I'm kind of thinking they might be the Yaxel team. I could see that happening. Yaxel or Mara, one of those Michigan boys going to OKC, like that would not shock me at
Yeah,
all.
you're right. I didn't realize it till you said. Obviously, it's good that OKC didn't jump up into the top 4, obviously, and they stayed at 12. But oh, I didn't realize that till you just said it. What a shame. What a shame. I don't want to talk too much about the draft. We'll have plenty of time to do that over the course of the next like month and a half leading up to the draft. We've been talking ball for about a little over 45 minutes at this point. I'll say the last thing Montreal scores. First, we'd be remiss. We were just talking about the Grizzlies. We'd be remiss if we didn't send our condolences to Memphis Grizzly organization. It's rare that something like this happens, and it's sickening. Makes me sick to my stomach every time. Their 29-year-old power forward out of Gonzaga, Brandon Clark, has passed away as of yesterday. Cause of death as of this particular moment is not currently known, so we're certainly not going to speculate, but we are going to send our condolences to the Memphis Grizzlies organization, the Clark family. It's disgusting, and it's one of those stark reminders that, yes, they are multimillionaires, but they deal with real people stuff the same way we do, and they have real issues and real problems that go on in their life. So we feel terrible, and we just send our best, like I said, to everybody involved in this tragedy. Go ahead, Ben.
I know Clark wasn't like, a big time name in the NBA, but when you think back to those Grizzlies teams in the early 2020s that were, with Ja and Bane and Jackson, and they were making those playoff runs and they were, punching up against like the older teams in the league, and they did the thing before OKC did it, where they had those big group interviews after games where they would all celebrate, and it was like there's a parade inside my city, yeah, and they'd all be huddled up. Clark was always a part of that. He seemed like a huge part of that culture. Seemed like a really like loved teammate by the other guys on the roster. So you hope obviously his family's not doing well, but you hope that they can be the best they can be in this time.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So sorry to end hoop talk on a somber note, but I would have felt it'd be, quite frankly, I know we joke around a lot here, but quite frankly, I would have felt like it would have been disrespectful had we not at least sent our condolences to that faction of the world right now. Brandon, timer's on. You are down to 51 seconds to talk hockey. Go ahead.
Damn, I don't know what I'm going to do with all that
47.
time. Right. So, you had mentioned how you're watching the Montreal Canadiens and Buffalo Sabres. So I think that's where we're going to start. That game is currently in the first intermission. Sabres down 2-1 so far. They've controlled possession, 13 shots on goal to Montreal's 6 right now, but losing on the scoreboard 2-1. So we'll have to see how that rest of that game plays out. But given what we've seen so far in this series, I have to like the Canadiens' odds to get this to 3-1. Not just because of where they're on the score. I mean, the way the series has played out so far, every single game has been dominated by one team. The losing team in each game so far has not scored more than 2 goals, and we've seen a 6-2 and a 5-1 loss so far in this series. That first game was 4-2, a little more evenly matched, but we've started to see that whoever's going to win the game is ultimately going to have to put a lot of goals up on the board, or is going to in dominant fashion. Given the Canadians they're up right now on the scoreboard, I like them to hold on to that. Momentum is a powerful thing, and they've certainly got it, especially given the fact that Sabres won that first game, but now, Montreal's gone and taken 2 and looking to make it 3 straight. So, they've got a little bit of a stranglehold on that right now, I think, it's safe to say.
Is it
One thing
question? I actually have watched a little bit of this series, and it didn't show itself against Boston like I thought it would. The Sabres look like a young team now. They look almost like a deer in headlights, which is strange to me because I would have thought that they would show it earlier, like I said, against Boston, against guys like, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, guys that have been through kind of the trials and tribulations before in their career. Like, I know neither of them are Stanley Cup winners, but obviously Pastrnak's been to a cup final, came within a game of winning it. A guy like Jeremy Swayman, again, trials and tribulations. That inexperience didn't show itself against Boston, but it's absolutely showing itself against a rather inexperienced Canadian team, with a guy like Yurov Slavkovsky, who hasn't really been there before. Cole Caulfield hasn't really been there before. What is it? Is there something that the Canadians are doing that the Bruins didn't do that is showing Buffalo's inexperience in this series?
I just think what it is they're they're playing a more complete team. In Boston, you highlighted all the big names. That's the problem, is that Boston, we talked about them a little bit more than I even planned on last week, so I'm not going to get into it again, but that team was not built to make a playoff run, to make the playoffs, not much less make a deep run. So the fact that they got there was an overachievement in itself. And so Buffalo was really able to handle business because Buffalo was built to be a playoff team. Buffalo was built to contend with the best teams in the league. Well, guess what? So was Montreal. It shouldn't be a shock to anyone that both of these teams are in the second round. I think it would be rather unsurprising to see the Canadiens even in the Stanley Cup final this year. I think that highly of the roster they've built. They're both young teams. It's just I think it comes down to Canadiens are a more complete team. I mean, you look at the blue line, you have Lane Hudson, who's been a breakout star. Ben, you asked me before the playoff started who was a breakout star. I said I'd love to pick Lane Hudson, but I don't have Montreal getting out of the first round. Well, guess what? They got out of the first round, and I'm being proven right because Lane Hudson is, if I'm not mistaken, I'll pull it back up again to just double check. Yeah, he's leading the, barring tonight, just because this has not taken any points tonight into account. He's leading the team with 9 points. Like, he has been Montreal's best player by far and away. And like I said, that's coming from the blue line. It's a defenseman. You're not necessarily looking for them to lead your team in points, especially on a playoff contending
He has
team.
another point.
So
He has another point tonight.
Okay, so there we go. He's up to 10. So, he has really been a breakout star for the Canadiens. And then they just brought in, I don't remember if it was this year was his first year or if they brought him in last year. I'm pretty sure this year was his first year, but they brought in Noah Dobson from the Islanders, and he's had his ups and downs. He's been criticized at times for being more offensively minded and not paying enough attention to the defensive side of the game, especially as a defenseman. But at the same time, like, he's a very good player in his own right when he's on his A game. So, I mean, and they got a couple guys outside of that, Mike Matheson, Caden Gooley. These are guys who are very competent second pair defensemen. Overall, Montreal's roster is so well put together. They might not have the same high level depth or high level players that some of the other teams in the NHL have at the top of the lineup, but their depth is incredible, and that's really what you need to win this time of year. Like, if your top guys can produce at, a point per game clip even, which is a little bit low for those, high-end superstars, you're gonna find success. Any team that can roll all four lines out there and just hammer you wave after wave after wave unrelentingly, those are the kinds of teams that win the Stanley Cup year in and year out. I mean, obviously you do need the high-level talent too. If you can combine both, that's a match made in heaven, but I would take a team that can hit you with wave after wave time and time again. And that's exactly what Montreal's able to do.
I hear you. Can you talk a little bit about, and don't spend too much time on it because it was rather uneventful series, but I guess we got to give them their props. The Carolina Hurricanes, as I mentioned earlier, have won 8 straight games to start the Stanley Cup playoffs. They, obviously that means back-to-back sweeps, first over the Ottawa Senators, and then the double sweep of Philly. We already talked Knicks earlier, of course, but, they swept the Philadelphia Flyers. I feel like, I don't know if it's that you're still just like showing a lot of respect to the Canadiens, or you're still just not sold on Carolina. I mentioned last week how I think Carolina is a lock to come out of the Eastern Conference. That was while they were up 1-0. Now they've swept. You seem, though, not as convinced as I am. Before you go, though, Ben's got a question.
Are they south or north?
They are north. They are based in Raleigh. So they are just the Carolina Hurricanes, but they are based out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
In my experience, the further south you are, the better at hockey your team is.
I mean, hey, recent years, you're not wrong.
Right? Dude, the last two was what? The bad guys. What are their
Florida.
names?
The Florida Panthers.
Vegas.
The last six Eastern Conference Finals representatives have come out of Florida. It has been the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning every single year for the last 6 years in the Stanley Cup final from the Eastern Conference. It really is.
Go ahead, B.
Yeah, to talk a little bit about Carolina. I'm a little more convinced after they handled business against the Flyers. I thought the Flyers would pull off at least a win or two, especially the way the kid Porter Martone has been playing. He had the highest selling jersey of any player once the playoffs started. So just props to him, coming in and lighting it up and being an offensive producer for the Flyers, playing against some tough teams and just being like a little spark plug for him. It's just incredible to see, a young kid step in and do that for a team. And I think the Flyers were kind of in that same position the Bruins were a little bit. I think they just surprised a lot of people in the first round getting out of there against the Penguins, a very veteran group. But at the same time, they had to play a real playoff team after that because the Penguins, they overperformed. They're another overperform this year. A team that's kind of trying to retool and make the most of that Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang era while they can. That's really what their goal was, to make them competitive for the last few years of their Penguins careers. So the Flyers are able to get through them, even though they also overachieved. I mean, the Metro was not super deep this year beyond Carolina, and Carolina just, they just played their asses off and played great hockey, and they're doing what they do year in and year out. They control possession, they dominate you, they're fast, they hunt pucks. Like, Carolina is a really good team in their own right. It's just, it comes down to, historically, they've been the team that then they're built to win regular season hockey, and they have some really good talent at the top. And then they have to play teams that are built for the playoffs, like the Tampa Bay Lightning were, like the Boston Bruins were, like the Florida Panthers were, and they just couldn't hold up against those types of teams. They were, I hate to say it, a little too soft at times. And we've seen that them try to address that by bringing in guys like Brent Burns. They've tried to improve that aspect of it, but they haven't necessarily been able to. I think this is their year to really make that push. Now, with looking at the teams left, just because I don't see a team that I say Carolina can't beat them. They don't have the experience. They don't have that same level of physicality. What's up, Ben? Or Pags? Sorry. Jesus Christ. What am I doing? You're not Ben.
Yeah, no, don't Ben again. I'm a little offended you didn't, when you talked about the teams that Carolina ran up against, you didn't mention the Rangers.
I hate to say it, but I think the Rangers were built the same way Carolina has been in the past. Just frankly a little too soft to play playoff hockey.
Matt Rempe.
Okay, see, Matt Rempe is one great player. I've said this
He's
time and
great?
again.
Is he?
He's awful.
Well, for the role that he plays, don't get me wrong, he's a terrible hockey player, but for the role that they ask him to play, he's
Good
great.
culture guy? Good culture guy?
Good beat your face in guy. Really
Well,
good
that's
beat your
hockey.
face in guy.
All kidding aside, the reason I bring up the Rangers, though, is because they defeated those exact same Hurricanes twice in the playoffs. 1 in 7 when Carolina, I guess you could argue Carolina was a superior team both times, but one time in 7 back in 2022, and then again in the second round. Again, it was second round both times, and then the second round again in 2024. So I think the gripe is fair that the Rangers were too soft to hold up to a Florida Panther team. They kind of kicked crap out of us in 24. There's no doubt about that. And the Devils kind of beat us up in 23. So, yes, the Rangers have limitations themselves. I'm just saying, if we're going to mention teams that Carolina has run into that have given them problems over the years, you cannot leave out the team that has defeated them 2 times out of the last 4 playoff runs.
I'll give it to you. That's
Shame
fair.
on
Yeah,
you.
you should be embarrassed.
Have you guys seen Game of Thrones? When they're like, shame,
Yeah.
shame.
Are we doing this?
You have, Brandon?
Yes, I have. Oh, yeah, I love that show.
I'm watching it for the first time. I got 2 seasons left. I hear it's about to plummet in terms of quality.
Well, we'll have to talk about that a little later because that is not a potential experts friendly show.
Shame. We got to shame Evan next
We
week.
will.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. So, Ben, I have a question for you now, a hockey question.
How about? Oh, okay. Wait. Can I clarify? When I say go Birds, because I listened to the podcast last week, I'm not talking about the Eagles. Eagles are one type of bird. I don't think anyone refers to them as the Birds. No one says go Birds. This is my new thing that I'm starting, and it's in reference to the hockey teams with bird mascots and no one else. All right?
So, just for clarification, that would be the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Anaheim Ducks.
Anaheim Ducks, who wear
They are
striped jerseys?
they have stripes on them.
Lame.
Anyway, so
They had 15 pounds.
Let's talk a little bit about your
Not
Ducks
to mention
real
the
quick.
pads.
I'm not gonna get too much into the series because I'm going mostly off of box scores and stats here. Most of the games start at 9:30. Frankly, I'm not staying up that late to watch them most of the time.
Casual.
Yep, hit me with that if you want. That's fine. But Ben, I want you to give me one word that you think you would use to describe the Ducks' playoff run so far. Pags and I talked about this a little before. He kind of agrees with me. I want to hear your opinion as a renowned Birds fan because famously Birds do love cups. What
Can I give
word
you
would
3?
you use? What you can give me 3, but let's do it quick.
Historic, immaculate, legendary.
And I picked none of those words. You want to know what word I picked for them?
Duck?
They're the plucky Ducks. And I say that because they're feisty. These Ducks are feisty. They're giving the Golden Knights a run for their money, and I love to see it. Everyone hates the Golden Knights. They really have for a long time. Except basically after that first year where they made the run to the Stanley Cup final in their inaugural season, everyone's been kind of like, "Screw Vegas. I don't like them. They don't treat their players well." Well, Ducks are giving a run for their money. That series is tied 2 games apiece against a team that, or the Ducks are a team that most people thought was too young to be a real threat in the Western Conference and play playoff hockey. And frankly, I was among the doubters. I had them losing to Edmonton in the first round. Yet here we are. They're tied with Vegas, and they could very easily be representing the Western Conference, or excuse me, representing the Pacific in the Western Conference final. Would not go so far as to say they're going to make it to the Cup final, but hey, they're having
I
a
would.
really nice run there. You would?
Yeah. I never heard about a duck who likes a conference. Who wants to
Okay.
go to a conference? But a duck who likes a cup? That's when we going up, man.
Famously love cups.
Famously.
All right, so with that, we're going to talk about the team that I frankly feel is going to be eliminating the Anaheim Ducks, and that is the Colorado Avalanche. I'm not saying that their series with Minnesota is over, but they have handled business with Minnesota. We talked a bit about how Minnesota's special teams last in this postseason have been abysmal, to say the least, especially their penalty kill, not being able to stop a thing. And that's kind of been their Achilles heel. They have not been able to slow down the Colorado Avalanche, and we've seen that over and over again. They did finally get a win the other night on Saturday, but getting a 5-1, really rather convincing win. But that Avalanche roar back on Monday night with a 5-2 win of their own. One big concern that we have to keep an eye on for the Avalanche, that would be that their star, Nathan MacKinnon, took a puck to the face in that 5-2 win. Thankfully, he was able to. It was close to the end of the second period that he took the puck to the face, had to leave the ice, head back to the locker room, was able to return for that third period. Hockey players, they're tough guys, they do that, but you do have to wonder for game 5 on Wednesday night, or maybe even game 6, is he going to be able to play in those games? Just you have to wonder about Tushin. How is it going to affect him? We've seen hockey players push through injuries before, but you do have to think, is there potential for, him entering a concussion protocol for something like that? What's up, Ben?
Question, but don't they wear like helmets?
They do. Typically, in the NHL, players wear a visor that covers, basically just your eyes, nose, and
Yeah.
mouth are reasonably well exposed. When a player has an injury like that, where they take a puck, broken jaw, something like that, they will have them wear like a full face shield. But most players, they opt to wear just
It just like looks cool.
say what you will, it's what the players choose. I mean, there are some players up until I don't know what year it was, but they used to have just no visor whatsoever. You just, you had a bucket on your head, full face exposed. And then eventually the NHL came in and said, all right, we're gonna, if you've been playing for a while, we're gonna let you stay with no visor, but now everyone has to start wearing a visor. When we saw, unfortunately, a young youth player passed away from being cut on the neck by a skate a few years ago.
Yeah.
We started to see a lot of leagues implement neck guard requirements,
Okay.
basically in
Yeah.
the same manner as the face shield, right? They're gonna like grandfather it in. So if you've been playing without it, you can continue to do so. But all the new players coming in, you're gonna have to wear them. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched this one hockey movie. It was old. I think it was from like the 70s. And he had the hockey mask on. Then he started killing people.
Yeah, I
There
don't
was a
think we're
there,
talking about the same thing here.
there was like a
That's a
sleepaway
little
camp.
bit different. Yeah, just a little bit
They used to
different.
they used to wear those, right?
Yeah, goalies used to wear those, but
I'm not gonna lie.
not in a
And
long
then in
time.
Teenage Mutant,
When he started,
yeah, go
when he
ahead.
was saying, "I saw this whole hockey movie," I really thought he was about to describe Miracle. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I kinda did too. I was going there maybe, yeah,
Well, it was either Jason or the guy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles who wears the hockey mask.
I don't know the name, but I know what you're
Oh my,
talking
you
about.
guys are not ready for my history fact of the day. We could do that
Alright,
or a joke at the end.
I say, we're almost done here with the hockey talk, so give me a second to wrap it up, then we'll get right to that. Last thing I do wanna talk about is Josh Manson, defenseman for the Avs. Dirty player. Fined $5,000 for hitting a guy we've talked about in the show before, Michael McCarron, the Minnesota Wild center that they got from the Nashville Predators in that trade deadline deal that Pag said he wanted to go to the Michael McCarron revenge game in Nashville. Yeah, he got the butt end of Josh Manson's stick in a little tangle up there. I thought there was going to be more supplemental discipline for that because he even is quoted as saying, I did want to punch him in the face, and then just got him with the butt end of his stick instead. Double minor in the game, $5,000 fine. I really thought he was going to get a game for that just because that is kind of mushed intent. Got him right up in the temple too, or somewhere in this general area. So you got to think that's something the league would take pretty seriously. I don't know about his history. I don't know what supplemental discipline history he has, but I was expecting to see a little bit more than, just the $5,000 fine for him on that one. Which $5,000, I will say, is the maximum allowable fine under the current NHL CBA.
They make no money, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, highest paid players in the league. I think what's Kirill up to? I think he's
14.
up to 14 milli or something, 14 or 15, something like that offhand. I
Yeah.
don't remember offhand, but he's in that
Mid-level
general
exception
range.
money.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's like that's a mediocre offensive lineman in the NHL.
Yeah. Okay, before we wrap up, B, any further hockey talk you feel pretty good?
I got some stuff I want to talk about draft lottery at some point, but we'll save that for off season. So yeah, we'll save that for when we're talking more draft.
Sounds good. Ben, before we get to your history fact, news that was speculated, Daryl Morey is out as the Philadelphia 76ers general manager. Nick Nurse is remaining the head coach. So for those that thought maybe the Sixers would totally clean house, no. But for those that thought the Sixers might look to make a move after another disappointing playoff exit, this time obviously a sweep, well, then you were vindicated in your thought. Daryl Morey is out. Ben.
But he had a great trade deadline. He sold high on Jared McCain.
He sold high on
Did he
Jared
not?
McCain, who's now, as we already stated, contributing heavily with very, very solid minutes as a spark plug off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, yep. But
all I'm saying is maybe if Philly was a sports town, he would still have his job.
Honestly, that could be a decent spin zone. All kidding aside, we won't rehash this because obviously we talked enough Knicks, Sixers. So I'll say this, and Ben, if you have something to add on, you can add it on. The fact that the Sixers traded him away and then their bench in this series was legitimately Quentin Grimes, who had a bad series, Andre Drummond, who did basically nothing all series, wasn't even lethal from the corner threes like he usually is. And then you kind of had sparing a Dem Bona or Justin Edwards minutes, kind of. The fact
Barlow, too.
Barlow, good call. By my bad on that, but Dominic Barlow as well. But regardless, the fact that they traded Jared.
You got Jack from the bench.
Yeah, you got Jack from the bench, and you traded away a guy that could have been a very good contributor off your bench. Yeah, you know what? You're kind of signing your own death warrant when you do that. Like you're gonna get.
Yeah, and a guy who could save Tyrese Maxey's legs a little bit. 'Cause that guy was playing 40+ minutes a game, like all season long, basically.
Definitely. So that's all we had on that. We won't, like I said, we won't rehash all the NBA. Just that news officially. I heard rumblings throughout the day today. Didn't think it was going to officially come down. It has officially come down. So I wanted to say that. Ben, I woke up to a great audio message this morning from Ben because he said something to me. He's like, I wanted to send you this audio message because if I texted it to you, I think you would have thought I was making fun of you. But I love when you say stuff about, oh, like you're hearing this because of your addiction to Twitter. It makes me feel like, you got the inside scoop and I like it. So
hey, we have insiders on this show, guys.
We do.
I was hearing rumblings today that Morey was out. It's like, nah.
I was hearing
dude was on Twitter.
Those were my rumblings. I didn't say I spoke to several executives around the league, or I spoke to agents, or I was on the phone with the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. I heard rumblings. The rumblings were on Twitter. That sounds like Daryl Morey's out, and he's out. So my rumblings, my sources,
and he put it in text to speech.
Yeah.
Elliot Friedman, Ian Rappaport, Ben Pagliaro.
Exactly. All in one.
Who in the world is Elliot Freeman?
He's the hockey guy, right?
Number one NHL insider.
Yeah, Adam Schefter, Shams. Actually, I'm Woj. I don't want to be Shams. Okay, Ben, hit us with your history fact and/or your joke, and we'll put a wrap on this one.
Well, Brandon, do you want a joke or a history fact?
I do like. Let's end this lighthearted. Let's hit us with a joke today.
All right.
Oh no.
I picked wrong. I can already
You
tell I
picked
picked
so
wrong.
wrong. And if you didn't bail on Friday night when me, you, and Ethan were supposed to hang out, you would have known not to pick joke. You would have known, but you
No.
bail. You know what? This is what's about to happen is your fault. Ben, floor is yours. I apologize.
So there's this man. He's going through a pretty tough time. Normally he's a normal guy. He goes to work, he does his thing, but he's single. He's getting into his like late 30s. He's just kind of feels empty. He's having trouble getting out of bed. He's depressed. So he goes to the doctor. Goes to the doctor's office, sit down. Doctor says, what's up? How can I help you? Man says, I feel this overwhelming, just like despair and sadness. And when I don't feel that, I feel nothing at all. Like, I need your help. Please help me. And the doctor looks at him. He thinks for a second and he says, I don't, this is tricky. I am like a doctor. We normally do physical things. So I don't know if I have the best treatment for this, but I do have one idea. It's a little unconventional, but I feel like this could work for you. The man says, please tell me. Like, I'll do anything. And the doctor says, well, there's a very famous clown in this town. His name's Gazpacho the Clown, and he puts on these shows. It's a family affair. Adults go, they drink, they have a good time. The kids love it. Everyone's laughing, they're jolly, and everyone just leaves Gazpacho the Clown, just spirits lifted into the sky. They love it. It's the best. And I feel like if you go see Gazpacho the Clown, there's no way you don't leave that show happy. And the man, he's been looking down on his knees, and he picks his head up, and you see one tear just rolling down his cheek. He says, doctor, you don't understand. Like, this won't help me. This can't help me. Doctor says, why not? Like, what do I not understand here? The man looks at the doctor and he says, doctor, see, I hate clowns.
That's
I need you to understand. I was sitting in this exact spot, and Ethan was sitting about 3 feet from me when you sent us that voice message at first. I'm like, I told him, like, oh, Ben like sends me voice messages. Let's see what this one says. I'm like, he turns out he's trying out a new joke. Like, we thought you were just taking an extended pause after that. And we're just like, and Ethan just turns and goes, is that it? And we were just perplexed.
Well, because
that
you
was
think
something. That was something.
you think the man's gonna be Gazpacho, but then I pull the rug out from under you. You know what I'm saying? You want another one?
No.
No,
It's-
I think we're gonna
Leave
end the show on that. Pags, wrap us up, get us out of
All
here.
right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Ben, thank you for your comedic expertise. Brandon, thank you for your hockey expertise. Ben, in addition to your comedic expertise, your basketball expertise, we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys listening. This was a lot of fun. I'm not just saying it because Evan wasn't here. This was a really, really fun show. So please spread the word. You drop us a listen, drop us a follow, all that good stuff. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna call it a night. Go Knicks. Love you. Peace.